Hi, it's Debbie Hilly, and I'm getting ready to work on one of my puppies, Charisse. And I wanted to show you how to demat full-coated dogs easily and fast. She has not been taken care of the way I should. We've been busy. It's been a little bit past Christmas time now. And anyway, she's a perfect candidate for this because she's got great hair and it's really easy to do on her. And the biggest thing to remember with them is that you're going to be using two tools. If you do it my way, you'll use two tools. I do not use dematting tools. I do not use splitters. I do not use rakes. I use a stiff slicker, which you can get this one at the Groomer's Mart, and I'll get you a link to it. This is a Tougher Than Tangles, and this is the long pin medium, I think, and a good comb. Now, it can be this comb, it could be the Utsumi, which you know I absolutely love, and they don't recommend for dematting, but I find it gets out all of the fine undercoat really well. Or a poodle comb. Anything, whatever yours your preference. But I'm going to use the stiff bristle brush, which you have to be really careful because it is very stiff. I mean, you can see it doesn't move a whole lot. And it will scratch if you push down on the skin. So you're not going to be doing that. You're going to be working on the hair. Hey guys, chill. First things first, she's had a bath. She's mostly dry because I blew her out. But the reason behind doing it on a dry or on a clean dog is that the urine and the dirt are no longer in the coat. Therefore, they're not sticking the coat together. They're not acting like glue holding it together. I did this side of her right, my right side, her left. It took like 5 minutes. And it was matted. But we're going to start over here, and I'm going to start with her ear. But I'm going to show you how this works. First things first, bathe them, dry them off really well with a towel, and then force dry them a bit. She's been sitting a little while too because I've been dealing with clients. So she's a little drier than I would like. But before she got this dry, I took my spray, which is any spray of your choice. This happens to be Stasco. And you spray it in, and I did this while she was wet, but I'm going to do it again. And you can see the mats back here. Let me move my table up. Well, if I turn it on, we can move it up. It's plugged into a power strip. If the power strip's not turned on, it won't rise. But you can see the mats here. I mean, they're not horrible, but they're everywhere. And a lot of people would decide that this dog needed to be shaved down. There's no reason to shave this. And the technique you'll learn doing her is going to apply to any dog that you want to shave, that you want to demat. She's got mats underneath here as well, which I'll turn her so you can see. You see the mats? I mean, they're at the skin, but they're not everywhere. She's just got them in clumps. So what I do then, after all of this is in, I'll work it in with my fingers, and these mats underneath I'm going to pull apart with my fingers. You see how I just did that? I just pulled them into smaller pieces so that I don't have one big mat. I now have a bunch of little ones. You do that with any mat you can see. It takes less than a minute to do the whole dog usually, maybe 2 minutes at the most. But you get all of those mats split up with your fingers. That one doesn't need it. And then you're going to dry the dematting spray into the mats while you're brushing. And what will happen is the mats will fall right out. Now I'm using a doozy dryer, which is behind here. It's my little square dryer. I put it behind the wall just to make it easier to work with. And I'm going to start on her back leg here. And you start at the bottom and work your way up. And the reason you do that is that you're only pulling on 1 or 2 mats at a time. And what I like about being able to dry them at the same time is you can see the mats. You know where they are. And as a result, you can control what you're doing. Kind of like line brushing. You're going to be line brushing and drying at the same time, and as you brush that area, you get the mats. And then what I do on top of this, when I get that section dry, and brushed out, I'll take my comb and go behind it just to make sure that it is out. Then I move on to the next section, 1 or 2 inches at a time. And again, brush. Until you get most of it out. And remember, you're starting at the bottom and working your way up for a reason. That way you're not pulling through all of the mats, you're pulling through 1 or 2 at a time. And there goes that section. And it'll tell you when you found more mats like inside her leg. You can get those out with a comb if you like. The wide tooth part of the comb will get those out. Now you watched me do this just now with both a comb, which pulled out those little mats there, that's undercoat, and a brush that got out that. The stiffer brush, when I use it, I pinch the skin, which is hard to see, but I have her skin pinched and my finger is going to be where the skin would normally be in relation to the hair on her legs. Now when you get up onto the back, you can't do that. So you don't want to scrape the skin, you just want to brush the hair. And using short little fast motions with a stiff brush, we'll get this out. You can see it flying. That's the undercoat mats flying out. Now she's a Havanese, and she actually has an incredibly correct coat for a Havie. The reason she's matted is my fault. We were too busy, I couldn't get her groomed. And on the weekends when I go home, I'm either working on this program or I'm collapsed because I'm so tired. But just that fast on that back leg, and I don't feel any more mats. You can feel them with your brush. You can also hear them. You'll hear a scraping, which is not coat damage. That is the mats hitting the brush. And you don't hear that anymore. You've gotten the vast majority out. Now, as you can see, that didn't take long at all. And we're going to get up in here, and I'm going to start at the top on this part because I want the hair to go down. And I'm going to get the top part brushed out because it's not really matted, and then I'm going to lift it. And again, we're going to be doing line brushing. Move it where maybe you can see what I'm doing. I'll hold the hair this way so my arm's not in the way. You can see the tangles of the mats. And the reason for the heat is the heat activates the dematting agents, be they silicones or proteins or whatever is in the product. It activates them and makes them like glass. So they coat the hair shaft, and instead of having the hair shaft rubbing up against the hair shaft, you now have the coated hair running up against the coated hair. And as a result, they don't stick together. And then the mats will brush right out. Stasco spray, which is what this is that I'm using, says to put it on the dog and allow the dog to dry and then brush it out. And you can do that. I prefer to brush it in as I'm drying the dog and get it out all at the same time. Kills 2 birds with 1 stone. That way I can directionally dry my dog and make her coat lay the way I like it. At the same time I'm getting the knots out. And the Stasco is offering some conditioning properties as well, because it has silk proteins in it. And those silk proteins really do work very well for conditioning the coat. I know, baby. There we go, we got it. She doesn't like this process at all. So for her to be sitting here like this, you know it doesn't hurt. Because she hates everything about being bathed and dried. Everything. If you were to turn on a force dryer with her, you would hear her scream like you were killing her. She hates it. It's one reason I chose her, because I know she doesn't like this. And you can see how easily it's happening, that it's coming out. Now the reason I went over to a comb underneath It's because I can't get a brush underneath without standing her up on her back legs, and I don't like to do that to dogs. It's not a normal posture for them, and I find it puts pressure on their hips and knees, and I won't do it if I don't have to. You can teach a dog to lay down, but I don't usually bother with that. I can usually get underneath it with comb and get out whatever's underneath there. And you can see it's coming right out. There's no problem. Now, on her front legs, I am going to use the stiff brush. And if you notice that the mats are not sliding right out, you can add more spray. Like right under there, there's one that I may end up having to shave out, but I don't want to. Excuse my coughing. I have interstitial lung disease, and I woke up this morning with a cough that won't go away. So I'm using my inhaler. The mask makes it harder to breathe, but it's important because you don't want to breathe in the spray or any dirt that might be left on her or any shampoo residue or anything like that. You don't want to breathe that in. So I always wear a mask when I'm working. Today I'm just coughing more than normal. So yeah, it's important to wear something because unlike the dog that's going to have it put on them once, where are you going to be around this all day, every day? Oh, hush. And because we're around it all day, every day, you can breathe it in and it can become a problem over time. It might not ever bother you, but why take the chance? Anyway, we're going to switch over to a comb here in just a minute. But when I use this brush as well, if I'm using it in small areas, I'm using the corner of it mostly. You can use one of the V-shaped rakes or brushes that are put out by Mars and by Aronco. I just prefer to use just the corner of my brush most of the time. So, we've gotten most of it out. Yep, you can stand up for just a smidge like that. That's good. Good girl. Let me get underneath. Now you'll notice I'm not forcing her to do anything. We are simply working with her as best I can. And I'm working from on the legs, I work backwards, generally speaking. So I'm combing the hair backwards towards the body. And on the inside, I'm doing the same thing. Towards me, or not down, because again, you don't want to comb through. Oh, you don't want to come through all that long here. You want to do it in short little bursts. All right, sweetie, we're just about there. But she is probably 90% done. She got dried at the same time. So we got the directional drying of her coat so that it will lay the way that I'd like it to lay. And I know there are people out there screaming that you lost a lot of hair. I did. I lost a bunch of hair. But it was hair that needed to come out or it wasn't brushed out. I didn't tear her hair. And remember too, she hadn't had a bath in probably 3 months. So if you add it all up, for 3 months, that's not a lot of hair. She is full grown, so it's not puppy coat that we're losing. It's just she has undercoat that didn't get brushed out because she didn't get a bath. I don't brush my dogs usually unless they get a bath. And because she hasn't had the ability to get one because we've been too busy, she got backslid a little bit. Now, on ears. It is important to hold the ear leather, and her ear leather is way up here. The mats are at the bottom, but I'm holding the ear leather. You do not want to scrape the ear leather with a brush or a comb. If you do, you can cause bleeding because the ear tips are so fragile. Now, her matting is also not on her ear leather. If it's on the ear leather, it takes extra precautions, and I'll see if I can find a dog like that to show you. Because you can tear the ear, cause hematomas in the ear. You don't want to demat severely casted ears if you don't have. Now, This is my utility comb. It is an Utsumi, but it's the Utsumi Gold, so it's not as fragile as the Havanese. But I use it on faces to get the gnats out of the beards and their faces, just after I've broken them up with a brush. It will help me dry the face the way I want it, and I have more control over a comb, so I'm not going to hit eyes, I'm not going to hit eyelids, I'm not going to scratch noses or mouths. I'm just going to get the hair combed the way I want it and make it lay the way I want it. She is tiny for a Havanese. I know a lot of you are going, I've never seen one that small. Her dad's a grand champion. Her mom is pointed. And she should have been shown, but COVID hit. So she never got the opportunity as a puppy to show. And she is borderline being big enough. They have to be 8.5 inches at the shoulder, and she might make it and she might not, depending on how she stands that day. Now, one reason I still have the dryer on is she's not 100% dry. So as I comb through the rest of it with my comb to make sure that I've gotten it, this will continue to dry the Staz coat into her coat and add more protection. Now, when we bathed her, she did get a really deep conditioning treatment also. So she had conditioner in her hair when I pulled her out here because my son did not rinse her completely. We bathe them, apply conditioner, and then you rinse 90% of it, but you leave a small amount of it in because it won't hurt the dog and it will help with the process of getting the gnats out. It will also allow it to penetrate more as she sits up and waits on us to get to her. You can use a leave-in if you'd rather. I've just never found a leave-in other than a spray that I like. Every shampoo and conditioner that I use is not necessarily going to work at your facility. Oh, I'm glad I was done with that comb. I've dropped 2 in the process of working on her. Because we all have different water, and your water will affect how your conditioners and your shampoos work. With the exception of like sprays. Sprays are going to be consistent across the board, but leave-ins, rinse outs, and shampoos are all going to be water dependent. If you have really hard water, what I use would probably work for you. If you have really soft water, what I use might not. So I try not to go into a whole lot of detail about the shampoos and conditioners I use, because it doesn't really matter. But you can see, we've been working 18 minutes and most of that was me topping. But in less than 30 minutes, for the time that I worked on her, she has been fully dried and dematted, and I'm fixing to toss a bow in her hair and she'll be done because she doesn't really get anything else done to her. And the only reason I'm putting a bow in, God, please Havanese people don't scream at me, is because she is just going to go hang out on the floor and at the house, and she needs to have her hair out of her eyes. So, techniques are: heat up your spray as you're drying, and it will become really slick like glass. Use either a stiff bristle brush. You could use a pen brush. I've never found a pen brush that I liked. This is as close to a pen brush as I've ever come, and I really do like it. This is available at Groomer's Mart. You'll notice I didn't use any mat splitters. The only splitting that I did came with either the wide tooth part of the comb, my fingers as I pulled the mats apart, or the corner of this stiff brush. Other than that, everything was done with a comb and a brush. And I allowed the product, the Stasco spray, and my dryer, my little doozy dryer back there, which was on high heat and high volume air, to allow the stuff to work properly. There, I can't find, oops, I was about to say I can't find a mat in her, but I just found one loose one, and it was loose. As you can tell, it just came right out. But I'm combing through now with the fine part of the Utsumi comb, and everything looks great. So she is ready to go play. And as I say that, I found this is stuck at the end of the hair. That was stuff that didn't get brushed completely out. So there we go. Mission accomplished. That's how you demat a full-coated dog that's not horribly matted, but is a little bit matted. And now I get to move on to my day working on dogs that are horribly matted and need to be shaved down. I have 4 of them. Fun, fun, fun. Hopefully I can find another puppy I can show you some more dematting techniques on. But if not, that would be a good thing. I'm just not going to hold my breath. Oh, right there. One more right in the back under the tail because I didn't lift the tail up. But anyway, there you go. She's good to go. And that's under 30 minutes. It wouldn't really matter if they were bigger. And I know that's going to be a question for time because while it might take you a little bit longer to dry them, the matting is going to be about the same and you'd be able to use bigger brushes. It was really hard for me to use the bigger brush on her because she is so small. I wish it had been about half that size. But you now get the idea and it's super easy. Have a good one.